Hello, You-est You listeners, my beloved sacred souls out there. Thank you so much for tuning in to the You-est You podcast. I am so excited about today's guest. We instantaneously connected when I got to chat with Dana before doing this interview, and I know you're going to fall in love with her. So let me tell you a little bit about Dana Claudat, who is a modern Feng Shui Master and founder of the School of Intention Feng Shui certification program. In the last 15 years, Dana has pioneered her own approach to Feng Shui that is rooted in infinite possibility, creativity, and empowerment. Rather than hope for lucky results and outcomes, she helps her clients to create them every single day. She's a Stanford-educated art historian with more than a decade of experience in design, yet her approach to space is simple. She is a longtime mindbodygreen contributor and instructor. She may have had a hand in the hundreds of plants in mindbodygreen's headquarters. I love that. And her work has been featured in design and lifestyle publications around the world. You can work with Dana from wherever you are in the world in her online Feng Shui Camps and through her online Feng Shui Consultations. All right, Dana, I could not be more excited to have you and to talk about you and all things Feng Shui. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here because you're so bright and shiny and amazing and so on the same page. And I'm so grateful that we were introduced by someone who joined the school and said, you know, I think I know someone who you have to meet. And I said, oh my gosh, thank you, Gina. So thank you, Gina, for introducing us.
Thank you, Gina Caspero. We love you, right? She's like, Julie, you've got to meet Dana. I was like, yep, saw your stuff. And I was like, okay, when's this happening? So we'll talk about a bright light. I mean, your website, your work, what I love is so beautiful. It also has such your personality, and it feels to me, the little I know about Feng Shui, and I want to talk about this, is it just has a unique flair and take on it that I resonated with immediately. So I think before we get into like Feng Shui and what it is, I just think it'd be cool to talk a little bit about your path. Because I know you've really, one of the things I loved about you, Dana, is your choice to listen to your heart, to your inner guidance, and to follow that, even when I remember you telling me, even those that might not have seen it that way. And maybe you can just share, a little bit about where you're coming from, how you got into this work, and what it took to listen to yourself.
Well, it's so interesting because it's like flashing back to 15 years ago. And, there was nothing of this. We didn't have a wellness world. We didn't have people becoming coaches. I don't even know that I ever met a life coach. There were lots of healers in Los Angeles. There's always been lots of healers here, kind of underground. But there was yoga, but still it wasn't this thing. And so it wasn't even in my sphere of my universe. I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to start this business. I was working in the art world. I was managing big galleries. I was doing all of this stuff. And I was also just hustling like crazy. I was working and out and never home. And I always felt like I wasn't doing the thing that I was meant to be doing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people resonate with that. And it wasn't that I was dissatisfied. I was just like, and then what happens? And then what happens from this? I don't want my own gallery. I don't want to be this person. I don't want to sell it. What do I do? And I was thinking of actually getting a PhD, which is so interesting that your book is the PhD in You. And instead, in my wild and crazy life, where I wasn't partying, like doing drugs or drinking or any of those things. That wasn't my ruin. My ruin was actually self-help, which is really funny. Like I always had a thing within me that I wasn't right and that I had to fix myself. So I've seen and experienced pretty much everything you could ever do in terms of healing in Los Angeles at that time. If someone said, I have this nutritionist, I'd be like, let me get an appointment. You have a psychic, let me see them. You have this, I'll go. And I would just go as deep as possible. People would be like, there she is, she'll do your thing. And I was like, I'll do anything to not have this feeling that And it was a combination of a lot of things, that I was broken, that I wasn't enough, that there were so many, and it wasn't even like a small thing. It started when I was a kid and I was anorexic and no one knew what to do with me or what that was. And I was like, what is this that I always feel like an alien? And I think now looking backward, it was a lot of my intuition, which I think you can resonate with a lot, because that's a lot of how you work. But that didn't even have a word. A lot of the things didn't have a word. So I was looking to fix my broken self, and I wound up breaking myself, because if you look far and wide enough, you will find enough people who would happily take over your life, who will tell you how to live, what to do, what to eat, what not to, what this, what that has nothing to do with you, but all to do with what they practice, which is all well and good if people want to engage in that. But I was just like, give it to me, tell me how to live. And so I went and gave myself away to all of these philosophies, all of these things. I didn't know who I was anymore. I was just like, at some point, maybe I will be this person. And then, like, I don't know what was going to happen, but it was this drive in me. So I basically self-helped myself into the hospital, self-helped myself into being sick for months and months and months, and in and out of the hospital for a month. And then finally at home recovering. And I was looking at my house and I was like, how do I work in all these aesthetic fields? How am I supposedly a creative person? I have empty walls. I have shit stuffed in my closets. I have things everywhere. Who am I? What have I been doing? And, this was like the infancy of the internet 15 years ago. And I was like, let's look at some Feng Shui. What's that? And I saw more stuff that looked like it wasn't for me. And then I saw one thing that was like, oh, it's a little more scientific. Makes a little bit more sense. I'll just become a professional so that when I go back to work, I can do this stuff when I'm putting things in clients' houses of art and whatever I'm doing. So yeah, that's what I'll do. And so I just signed up and got three ring binders in the mail and started studying. And I was like, okay, this is cool. This is working for me. This is when I'm applying it in my way, it's changing my life. But how am I going to do this for someone else? Because it's so prescriptive. I can't say to someone, this needs to go in this place. When I was doing it for myself, I'd be like, I don't care if it goes in this place, but I'm going to do this. I don't care about this, but this is what I want. So I started from the start changing what I was doing. And then it evolved totally by accident from there.
Wow. So I was laughing, but not laughing when you were talking before about the self-helping yourself into the hospital, like trying everything. And I think anyone listening, I can just hear and feel people listening are like, oh God, it's so me. Like, try this, try that. And it really sounds like what happened was you found what you were looking for. It kind of was a more within yourself. You started to get that connection. So you took the 3-ring binder, you took the Feng Shui studies. You're like, I'm not prescriptive. How did you, because what you've created is, first of all, it's beautiful. It just feels to me like so it's expansive. Like it can work for anyone. And it feels like it honors that we're all unique. We're all individuated expressions of the divine. And I love, it feels that way in your work. How did you go from what you learned there to what you've created now?
Well, this is the funny thing. I didn't anticipate it would be a business, but I also didn't want to let this thing go. It was a weird thing because it was a time in my life where you're supposed to be finding your career. And, all my friends from school were like bankers and lawyers and running businesses soon. And I was like, okay, I am trying to like put myself back together again. I'm just going to experiment. So I got another job and just did this for fun. And I started a Tumblr blog literally on a whim. And I started just sending out little posts and I started just doing what I liked because I thought no one was watching. And I didn't care if anyone was watching because this wasn't my income. This wasn't my career. I didn't know where it was going to lead me next, but it was a little like serendipitous, but I don't really believe in that. It was like I was doing all of it. And I was experimenting with anyone who would, if I would put out a post like, I'm going to do online consultations for free, who wants to do them? And I would get these people messaging me and I would be like, great, let's do a call. And this was like 2006, 2007, when 2007, no one was doing anything like this. And I was like, if I could work with this online, that would be interesting. Let me try out some of this stuff. So I experimented literally for 4 years for free with so many people, anyone I met at a party, anyone I met anywhere, all of my friends. And people started calling me and they were like, I got this big deal. This thing happened. And I would be like, oh. And then sometimes my experiments wouldn't go right. People would be like, I miss my mirror. And I'd be like, put it back up. Let's see what happens. But I was doing it for free, so it didn't matter. And it wasn't like everything I was doing was so genius, but I started to understand the methodology and what I was reacting to. And I just couldn't handle the idea that any help that you could receive would impose a limitation upon you. And so much of Feng Shui, for anyone who's read it, who's listening, has a lot to do. You can't face in this direction. You mustn't have this. You must have a door that faces this, or you have to do 6 things you don't understand in order to fix it. That's just really not in the cards for me or most people that I know. And when you hear it, and this is something I talk about a lot in my school, when you hear something like that, if you hear your door's facing in the wrong direction and it's inauspicious, even if you put up 600 mirrors and crystals and things, you're always going to be afraid.
Yeah.
Because you've heard it from an expert. Expert words have so much power. Yeah. So I started to get a method, and then through a lot of, like I said, I guess it was momentum. We can call it momentum because I was just doing this, and it was, people were like, can I pay you? I was like, no, like, I don't even believe until I knew for sure it absolutely worked. I was doing something so different. I couldn't take money for it. So I just let it ride for a really long time, and it led to meeting, I had a whole big group of friends in Los Angeles that introduced me to more people. And then suddenly I met a whole bunch of people. My friend at the time, a close friend, Mastin Kip, who some people know, he helped me. Gratitude to you, Mastin, if you ever hear this. Yeah. He was like, it should be the Tao of Dana. I was like, okay, no one's going to look at this anyway. So we'll make it the Tao of Dana. And so that was that. He had introduced me to Tara Stiles, who is she's a pioneer in yoga, and she's incredible. And then she had introduced me to her friends, Jason and Colleen, who were starting mindbodygreen. And so it was like this, everyone was just kind of like, let's see, let's do, let's create. Like, it was really this spirit, which I feel some of right now in what's happening in the world right now as we film this spirit of getting back to things being raw, unproduced, people sharing just because they're really passionate about wanting to help people. There's no like other thing involved. Like, it's just really, people are just like, how can I be of service? And it was that feeling that was so exciting. And every day it was like, I wonder what's going to happen. And it was bizarre because I had all this press and all this stuff before I even started really working. And so it was a very haphazard path. My little Tumblr all of a sudden had this enormous audience and all these people messaging me. And so I was like, I guess I'm being pushed to take this seriously.
Yeah. Wow. I love your story. I love Mastin, by the way. I think he's amazing. I've gotten very into his self-love work, and especially struggling with food addiction. He talks a lot about that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I love your story. That what I love about this, Dana, is, it kind of happened through you. Like, it happened, you didn't push this, you didn't make this happen, which I think is really important for all of us listening to this right now is, when we can be in that state of flow. And for you, it sounds like, you talked about intuition before, just kind of following the next step, every day being open to what's going to happen next. And then this person introduced you to this person. When you said Jason and Colleen, I'm like, oh my God, that's got to be the founders of mindbodygreen. I love, and to think back then, they were just starting probably in a similar way. Like, let's just see what happens. Let's start this thing.
Well, I think that that's what people have forgotten, because it just mushroomed, like just blew up into something so big, all of it. And now everyone's doing some form of something, some form of coaching, some sort of form of thing. And I think it's wonderful that so many people are interested and engaged in all of this stuff. Yeah. But I really feel like everyone has a very unique contribution to make. And I always get excited when people really claim that unique contribution. Like when I told people for years I wasn't going to train anyone, and finally someone just kept asking. And so I was like, okay. And then it became a school. And now that I'm training people, I'm like, look, I really don't want you to be a clone of, I'm not looking, a lot of teachers want you to be a clone of them. I want you to be 100% you and evolve this further, because that's what life is supposed to be about. We're supposed to be really growing and not, trying to copy this or trying to be just like that. But I'm always looking for what's the new thing, what's going to be the thing that really excites me next. And right now there are certain things that really excite me, like positive psychology has always been a big thing for me, but even more now I'm like, oh gosh, this is such a big part of what's happening right now. Color is definitely something on my mind, certain aspects of astrology, like but everything that I do has to be unlimited, has to be not in any way damning. I never tell anyone anything's bad, because I don't believe anything's bad.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I approach everything, and how I always suggest to the people who ask me, what do I do next? I'm like, well, it's kind of a tricky thing to say, oh, just do what feels best, because when you're really stuck and really confused, that's a hard thing to do.
Right.
But usually it's, how can you get connected first? Like, how can you just forget about the work, forget about everything for a day or two, and just actually truly feel better? Then come back to it and see, oh, wait, what I was writing really sucks, or what I was writing is actually really good. And this is what I want to really focus on, or, really get perspective. And I don't, from an art background and working with so many artists, not every work is a masterpiece, and it doesn't need to be, but every piece of work you do is part of your evolution. It's part of your personal archive. So I've scrapped a lot of ideas that never actually became things. And I've also embraced a lot of things that I didn't plan on doing.
I love what you just said. Especially that what stuck out to me is there's nothing that's wrong or bad. I'm with you on that. It's really how we observe it or what feels right. And it sounds like, I'd love to hear your thoughts about Feng Shui, but one of the things you said that also spoke to me is that you've got to get connected first. You've got to get connected first before you can tap in and get a sense. Tell us, so if you were to describe like your, the way that you talk about Feng Shui and your philosophy on it and how you teach it. I mean, I would just love to for those listeners, to learn more, and they can learn more about what you do, and also to learn maybe there's some tips or something you could share as broad as it needs to be that could be helpful for someone who's like, I'm feeling stagnant or, not feeling as well or high energy. Because I know for me, I mean, it's Gina's actually the one who came into my house this last summer. And I got to tell you, the whole thing, it shifted my entire energy and my business. Yeah.
It's so awesome. Yeah. I love it. Everything. I mean, I think it's kind of common now to hear everything is energy. Everything is energy. And we're connected, not just to our home or our stuff that we cherish, but we're connected to our floor, our walls, like everything we're interacting with all day long. Yeah. So it's really, to me, if anyone feels stuck, there's some sort of heaviness that's settled in. And whether it came from you and then settled in your house, or it came from your home and settled into you, it's interrelated. So because I don't deal with psychology, so to speak, I don't go digging deep into, I always refer people to do therapy or any sort of healing work of that nature. But we really work on, okay, first let's clear all of this stuff out. Let's really start with a solid foundation. So a lot of times when people feel stuck, and I'm generalizing, but I've heard it a lot, people are looking for the end rather than the beginning. So it's when you want to get unstuck, you want something big to happen that goes, I've done it. Like now I have this thing, the masterpiece is made. But really it's just getting unstuck is realizing this foundation, looking at the blank canvas, having the idea that, and really working through the idea and then starting to make the thing step by step and editing it. It's all part of the process. So I always tell people, like, let's start so simple rather than, where is this big thing, or how do I know my ultimate life purpose? I don't know my ultimate life purpose. So I think that's a lot of pressure that we put upon ourselves to have to know everything already. Yeah. So what I like to do is start with foundational stuff. So wash your floors, vacuum. When it's hardwood floors, I like to vacuum or sweep and then mop everything. Sweeping and vacuuming are really good physical ways also to start opening up your energy. And then when you're doing something like mopping, I like to do something where I add something to the mop water, something usually fun. One easy thing you can add is a little bit, no matter what you're cleaning with, as long as it's not a product with ammonia or something in it. If you're just using water, for instance, add a splash at least of some white vinegar, because it's a really big energy clearer. I even recommend sometimes for people who have walls that are scrubbable to wash down their walls as best as they can, unless they have super high ceilings and it's almost impossible. Always do the baseboards. Really get everything from a foundational level clear. Sometimes that's like my number one getting unstuck tool, and understanding that while I'm doing it, my intention is I need to really get back to the basics. I need to get the ground under my feet. I need to get really solid. That's how we started this call. You said, can I take a few minutes and really just kind of get grounded right here? Because I was doing something before this and I was like, totally, because that's what we all do. And so all the foundational stuff is really, really helpful. And for some people that might also mean other foundational things that they haven't been doing, basics, sleeping, eating enough, all of those basic things that we think, oh, I know that already, but it doesn't mean that you're doing it. Like we all know that, but I could, I know a lot of people, myself included, who could go for a week without sleeping properly, who could go for days without having a normal schedule of eating. You know what I mean? Like all of these things that you wonder, why do I feel so bad right now? It's like, oh, I haven't had water all day. Like this is some basic stuff, but I want to just I communicate this so much these days. That basic stuff is really the foundation of everything. And without it, you can do all of the high level meditations and all of the magic in the world, and it won't have the same impact because you won't be there. You won't be present for it.
These are such great tips, so powerful. You know what I'm finding, the more years I'm on the planet, that often it's so funny as human beings, we want this big complicated answer, and it's like really what's simple usually is really what has most truth to it and is most supportive. And I'm like, that is really true. And I'm thinking how I have not mopped and cleaned at that level, and I probably need to. And I love that idea of the white vinegar, adding that. And really looking too to see where in your physical space, this is something I know, having struggled and been a lot of time in recovery from food addiction, is the physical space we live in, the house we live in our body. And I think what I'm hearing you say is the correlation, and it makes sense to me, with your body and then your physical space that you're living in. And so it seems like almost a mirror, like you want to clean up how you're caring for you, and then you really want to clean up how you're caring for your physical space. I love it. Yeah,
it's a really good point, and something that something that I've been really talking about more lately. I don't know that we all know about the chakras, but a lot of people know about the chakras.
Yeah.
They're energy centers that run from the base of your spine to the top of your head, but also there are so many that are in your hands, your feet. Like there's a whole huge, many, many systems of chakras, but the main 7 that are in your body, talking about being in your body, the main 7 hold all of this information. And they are actually what creates our boundaries. So when we talk about having strong physical boundaries, we're talking about our energy centers. So they're the ones communicating and creating from our skin in layers, creating all of our auric field, the glow that everyone has. So all of this, your own personal alignment, which starts with such basic stuff from the root chakra of being grounded, eating well, feeling safe, all of those things that are so fundamental, moving all the way up. That's like very, very basic. Most of it is very, very basic. And it's what we communicate with. Before our words, before our anythings, it's all our energy communicating out everywhere. So your energy field, and this is something everyone listening is going to be like, what? Your energy field is actually communicating with your environment. It's where it's getting its information. So you're not just sending information out, but you're getting information, and not just from other people or the news or books. You're getting information from the energy in your environment, and it's being assimilated in your whole body. So it's why you can go into a space and it looks fine, but there's something weird, and you just feel like almost like you're collapsing, or you feel tired. And it's like, what is this? This place is beautiful. I've been in even art spaces where I'm like, ooh, get me out of here. And I'm like, the art's amazing. There's something wrong with the space. Like it's just that heaviness or something in there. So I always say, like, really, when I say trust how you feel, it's not like an intellectual concept. It's actually like, really trust the way that your body is reacting, trust the way that you're reacting, and don't judge yourself for feeling like you don't want to do something or feeling like something isn't good for you. And it's so powerful. But what happens when you start cleaning up your space is that suddenly your whole body, your whole energy field is getting a whole different set of information. Even before you see it or smell it or touch it, you're just picking up the energy of it, and it's affecting your whole system. And so it's the fastest way that I found to make real breakthroughs when you're talking about like paradigm shifts and breaking through things, is really cleaning things up and doing whatever is effective for you to clear energy out that you don't need and welcome in the energy you do want. And as remedial as that sounds, if you do it and you're just focused on really what you want and focused on all those positive outcomes, it's bananas what happens. It just happens. Some people are like, they send me messages. They're like, how does this work? This is crazy. I'm like, I don't know, but it does. And you're doing it.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool. It's interesting. I just want to share a quick memory, if it's okay, because you just, something like, you need the little like emoji light bulb. I'm like, oh my God, I just saw the light bulb. I'm like, this is fascinating. And I'm curious if you've studied this at all, for those of us who can, it's very, a lot of us think of ourselves as empaths, right? Like really in tune. I did not know that term growing up, and I don't know if there's a correlation. So I'm curious what you think about that. But I will tell you, growing up, I was very sensitive to spaces, to lighting, to spaces. I could feel the energy. My oldest best friend, who I'm still one of my best friends in my whole life, like I loved being her space. It just felt like her house. It felt so warm and nourishing. I still would go back if I could. She's in Boston. I'm not. So shout out to Meg. But, and then there were other houses I would go to. And I remember it was like, it didn't make sense. It was a beautiful house, but I felt like I just did not feel comfortable. And I remember, calling my mom to pick me up. I never did this. I'm an extrovert. I would love sleepovers, but I could not stay at this girl's house. It felt so jarring to me. I had her pick me up. I pretended I didn't feel well. And I'm thinking, it just hit me. I must have been picking up on the energy of the space of something. Cause I just always wondered, like, am I sensitive? Oh God, this is like great. Like it makes it a little tougher, right? If you don't want to be in certain spaces. But I think there's something what you said made me wonder about that. Super interesting.
And you know, I get all these examples from my childhood because I think that's when we're the most unfiltered, where you're like, don't make me go there. No, so
Yeah.
I don't want to go there. It was interesting though. My pediatrician had a really awesome office. So I actually would look forward to going there because of his office. And he was kind of cool too, but his office was really cool. And then when I stopped thinking the office was cool, I stopped wanting to go. And so I like aged out of it before it was appropriate, but it was, it's an interesting thing you see. And one of the things I tell people, because this is something everyone can do, we get our impressions of home, not just from our childhood home, but from every place, like your friend's house, where you feel at home the earliest in your life. So anyone can look back to, it might even be a classroom. It might be your grandma's house. It might be a friend's house. It might be a church that you go to. It might be any place. Where did you feel truly at home? And it might not be your home. So if you can scan your memories and see what was that place where you felt the safest, where you felt the most grounded, where you felt the most present, where you didn't want to leave, you could just spend so much time there and do nothing. Those places, and it might be your home or a room in your home. Yeah. What about them strikes you? Yeah. And so for some people, it might be the scent of the incense in the church. For some people, it's the lighting. For some people, it's the colors or the textures, or they're all different sensory things that you remember. Like I remember my godmother's place. It was like, oh my God, there were so many distinctive things about her place that made me want to be there. And part of it was all of these little plants that she had along all of the windowsills. And so I didn't even realize it until recently that I do that everywhere I go. I start putting plants on all the windowsills, and I was like, oh, something that even escaped me. But if you can really, if one of the fastest ways to make a powerful feng shui shift is to really think about that home and what was, and that feeling of home and what was in that space, and bring even a little bit more of it into your space now. So whether it's a color, a crocheted blanket, maybe you make one, whether it's a piece of art that's on the walls, or pretty much anything, incense, whatever it is, that can be your key into this whole next level of connection with your space. And it's something that no feng shui person can do for you. You have to really do that, because no one else knows, what that is. And you can do that right now. And I promise you, you will see the difference, and you'll be like, why didn't I do this before? I can't believe this. This is so exciting.
So freaking cool. I just had this like another light. It hit me. I grew up in a very loving parents. My dad suffered from PTSD and didn't know it. And we had a lot of turmoil, I think, with awesome father, but struggled financially and just a lot of mania, depression. He just was my dad that was like, would pick me up and was always there for me, but frankly took horrible care of himself. And so it was a lot going on in my house. And my mom, who's very loving, also a lot of anxiety. And I remember my room was like, I redecorated that thing. I would take whatever money I made from babysitting or whatever my odd jobs were. And I would literally, I'm not kidding, like 3 times a year, redecorate the entire thing. I would go with my mom. I remember we went to like a carpet sale. I would go to like a lumber yard. I would just find things and like redo it. And I kept redoing it. And it was like, my bed was always made. I had these posters of like, I am me, I am okay. I mean, I like literally made it. It just hit me like, oh my God, no wonder I have all these still same thing, words that are affirming, and a lot of that light white and gold. It was like, that's what I found to be calming. It was very calming. I would shut my door and I felt really safe there, really calm. And that for me was my oasis. And I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. I didn't even think about some of the things I do today. It's connected. So I love that.
I see that.
Yeah. Right. It's like, It looks like I did when I was 9. But to ask yourself, what are those aspects? I never put that together. And I love what you just said, to think about what was the room or the homes or the spaces or the scents or the colors that gave you that feeling. For me, it's like that peace, calm, grounded, so that's a great question. All right. If you're listening, because you're not driving, probably take some notes. We'll have it in the show notes too, but that is brilliant. That is brilliant because it does shift how you feel, which affects everything.
And there's also studies that have been done about the architecture of the spaces where you feel most at home. So sometimes people are drawn toward that type of architecture and don't even realize it. Sometimes people feel uncomfortable in their great house because it's different architecture from what they felt most comfortable with as a child. Yeah. So it's very, very interesting. We can of course transform anything, but we do really have this very, very rich memory of childhood. Even if we don't remember the details, we remember those things that are familiar. I mean, it's even just that random stuff, like when you come across in a store, your grandma's candy that she would have in her bag or whatever it is. And you're like, oh my God, there's the violet candy. And then all of a sudden 600 memories come back. Yeah. That's the power of having all of that stuff around you in a good way. So, it's something that is so simple. And again, I think we talked about like simplicity. People, I think, are afraid of simplicity, that they wouldn't be a valuable expert if what they're doing is so simple and basic. But I feel like anything that's extremely complex is going to take people far, far away from themselves.
So well said. Okay. You had mentioned earlier, Dana, I feel like I'm trying to there's so many questions I have for you. I'm like, okay, I've got my notes. Well, you talked about, what excites you going forward. And you talked a little bit about color and astrology. I don't know if you've actually dug into it, but I'm curious. I think color is fascinating, the way that we feel around color. I'm wondering if you have any theories or what you've seen, or maybe even just like a little cheat sheet on color, just for what these different colors, what energies they can provoke. And if there's anything with the astrology, I don't know if you just started to get into it, but I think it's an interesting, fascinating whole realm to dive into.
Well, color, I think for everyone, the number one thing you can do for color in your life is to change the light in your home, because color only exists because of light. Color is a reflection. Color is not beaming out at you, because if the room is dark, there's no color. You can't see any color. It doesn't exist. Yes. So if people have not adequate lighting, fluorescent lighting that makes everything a weird color, sometimes you don't even realize it. Sometimes if you live in a rental, or even if you bought your home and there were already bulbs in the fixtures, you don't realize that they're fluorescent or they're really cold, and the light makes everything look a really horrible color. And even if you paint your walls or do anything, it's always, ugh. And so one of the first things I tell people is like, first check your light bulbs, because light bulbs are usually the least expensive thing to change and the easiest. You can unscrew a light bulb, screw a new one in, move it someplace else. Like usually any bulbs that are off color, I'll say, put them outside or put them in the hallway, put them someplace where they're not going to really interfere with your day-to-day life. Yeah. But then you have this whole new experience of color. So first, really get a sense of what colors you do have around you. Open some windows. If you have enough lighting available, sunlight, open some windows, let light stream in, see what colors are around you, and get enough light if you don't. So maybe it's get a lamp. I would move lamps around to see what it would do to my space. You can change a whole space just with moving around inexpensive lamps, like Target, IKEA, whatever you've got. Like just really see where light is going and how you feel. So once you have a sense of the color you do have, because no paint is going to ever change bad lighting, because all your color is born of light. Having that light alone can change everything. And you might realize, oh, okay, I don't really need to change my color. Favorite colors are always my first place to start. I teach color over literally, I think it's like 10, 15 hours, because there's so much about color and so many systems of color. And I think it's really fun to know them all because different people resonate with different systems. Some people are really into chakras. Some people are into psychology and the psychology of color. Some people are really into art and color, and they come at it from a designer's perspective. Some people have, a different system of color healing that they've gotten into or they're interested in. So I like everyone to know everything so that everyone can really pick, because ultimately it's about what's going to resonate with you. So whether it's your favorite colors or a color you've been craving, the first thing you could do is wear more of it, because it's easier than buying a new sofa or getting a new chair or getting a new big thing or painting your whole house. Wear more of it and see how it makes you feel. And then you can start exploring room by room. Do I want to change this? And what would that be? And what's really fun these days is that you can look up all the systems. I have posts on color on the blog, and I'll talk more about it, but you can visualize now. It's so simple with like every single paint company. You could put in a picture of your room and it will put the color on the walls, and you will find that most of the time, once you see it on the walls, you're like, I'd rather wear it. I'm okay.
Right. Better to be worn than.
And sometimes you'll be surprised and be like, oh, it has to be like, this room has to be pink, or this room must be blue, or whatever it is. And, you can't really go wrong. Again, I know in Feng Shui, there's prescription of a color for everywhere, but I just want everyone to know who's listening to this, who's had any experience with Feng Shui before. If you followed all of the dogmatic rule to the letter, your house would be 9 different colors predominantly in different little tiny quadrants, which is bizarre. And it would have to have all different things, which you might not even have. So you'd have to buy a bunch of stuff or move things into places that are really weird. And then on top of it all, some forms of Feng Shui say that you have to change it every year and sometimes every month. So it's start with your favorite colors, then move into what you are craving. The simplest is to wear it. Also to eat more of it if you can. Eat the color. That's another thing that's really, really powerful and simple. And if that doesn't really do it and you're still craving the color, add it to more things that are not like a bag, a wallet. Add it to things that are smaller that you're touching every day so that you're in contact with the color. And if that's not enough, then bring it into a bigger way into your space. I think because sometimes our color cravings change. It's always a good starting place.
Oh, I love that. Color cravings change. I love that. A 2-second story. It's really interesting. And I'm sure you've seen this. Before I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition where your thyroid just goes offline, for the whole year, it's really interesting, was very, very attracted to blue. Like I wanted to wear blue all the time. I needed a lot of navy blue. I mean, I have all these weird like things like a suitcase and like things that you were like all navy blue. All of it had to be navy blue. And it's interesting when I had this breakdown and immediately my intuition kicked in, was like, that is connected to your throat chakra, which is, your thyroid is right there, which the color typically associated is blue. I realized, and I think it's what you said earlier, we're energy, we're connected. Like there's something about that. If you're craving a lot of green, there might be something going on around your heart connection, or whatever it is. So I don't know if you touch upon that, but that was really powerful for me. I'd never thought of color in that way from a healing perspective even.
Oh yeah, it's funny. Last year everyone who's been doing the camps, the Feng Shui programs for a long time really wanted something new. And the only thing I hadn't taught was the chakra Feng Shui that I do with some people. And so there's a breakthrough camp, which is all about making breakthroughs through aligning your life. And so much of it has to do with all these subtle modalities, and color is one of the fastest to change things. So color healing usually works the fastest. It's one of the most tangible because color is literally energy. So if you're wearing a color, you have all this energy beaming off of you of whatever color that is, and it's a wavelength, and it does affect you. And so that's an awesome story, and that's proof positive of the fact that we all have a lot of intelligence about what we need and where we're headed, and and trust that a little bit more and see what happens.
So cool. I love what you said. And I don't know why it never hit me. Of course, color is a wave. It's energy. It's healing. I had never heard it like that. And it's like, hello. So cool. Tell us a little bit. I know before we have to wrap up, you have some amazing programs, camps. Like your website, which is just beautiful and colorful. Like before I got to know you, I literally wanted to go. It felt like a vacation to go there. I was like, oh, this is just like joyful and feels amazing. I was like, I could just come here. It's so much cheaper than like flying to Bali. I'm just going to fly to your website, Dana.
Oh, I love it. Well, that's a good, at least we all can right now. We can fly to each other's websites right now.
Right.
I could say the same about everything that you've created. Looking at your book, looking at everything that you do, it's all so sparkly and so colorful and so much rainbows. There's so many ways. Like the first thing I always tell people to do, I do free video series all year round for the different camps. And I do them literally so that tons and tons of people can really get deeper into the work. So anytime, there's always one free video series that's up at fengshuimagical.com, which is like where all the camps are. So people can go, right now it's breakthroughs with all the chakras. I definitely want you to do it, Julie. I think you'd love it.
So fun.
I'll make sure that you're in it because it would be, I think, so fun, especially with your awareness. And it's every single time people go through these and actually do the stuff, then they can get a real sense of what it is. Like I'm a very cautious shopper. I don't like to go and shop for things that I don't know about. And so I want people to really have wins with the work. And that's why they're engaging with it. I don't do hope, or if I hope that this works. I do it. I promise you it'll work. And then, if you want to do more, you can do one of the camps. They're really inexpensive. You can become a professional. It's a bigger commitment, but it's something really, really fun and cool. And it's like nothing else that exists in Feng Shui. But I try to do as much free content as possible for people so they can really get wins. My YouTube is full of stuff. I love being on podcasts like yours where you share so many unique things with people, because what I'm doing is definitely not what you've read about online. And so if you've been scared or confused or worried about something wrong or bad in your house, before I go, I might as well say there's nothing bad or wrong in your house. And if you can, try to shake that off and let that go and start fresh with, I'm so grateful to have a home, especially at a time like this. I'm so grateful that I have safety and security. I'm going to work, like we started talking about, on my foundations. I'm going to clear out some energy, whether it's just basic house cleaning or burning sage or whatever I've got, and then really start embracing my space more for myself to make amazing changes.
Beautiful. So well said. It is such a great reminder to always come back to gratitude and appreciation. And I just keep getting, it's not your mama's Feng Shui. It is not.
It's not it. That's awesome. I should have you write all my copy. That's amazing.
I'm like, if that's not somewhere, you might want it, just because I'm like, nope, not your mama's Feng Shui. Definitely not. Definitely not. I remember reading about it and I'm like, oh my God, you've got to put like a thing in the corner and you got to get green in that corner. And I'm like, who wants to paint it's just a lot. It didn't make sense. And I just thank you for such practical and easy to apply tips and tools, but also like remembering that for me, especially for everyone, I think tuning in that is into this, intuition and tuning into your wisdom, really, I love what the bottom line is. It's like, first of all, just being in tune with yourself. Like you said, when we started, get connected, right? Start cleaning out what's around you and within you, and then really being grateful, and then go from there.
It's so easy. It's so fun. And it's always such a joy. I'm so grateful to be able to do this with you today. And I'm so happy to know you.
Oh, thank you, Dana. So fun. Thank you. Yay.